The rain had been relentless for hours, drumming a furious rhythm against the tin roof of the garage. As Kayla Alvarez slammed the hood of her old Jeep shut, grease smeared across her cheek like war paint. She swore under her breath, tugging off her gloves, her patience worn thin, not by the busted radiator, but by the voice echoing in her head, the voice of her ex, Ethan Cross, with his smooth-talking charm and infuriating smirk. 2 years since their breakup, yet his name still stung like whiskey on an open wound, and of all the damn luck, today was the day he walked back into her life, not with flowers or apologies, but with a wrecked Mustang and that same maddening swagger. "Thought I'd find you here," he said, leaning against the doorframe like he had every right to. "Still pretending to hate me?" Kayla didn't even look up. "Still pretending you're not the reason my trust issues need therapy?" He grinned like the years hadn't hardened them both. But Kayla wasn't the girl who cried when he left without explanation, and Ethan wasn't the boy who promised forever on a rooftop under city stars. They were strangers now, familiar, volatile, unfinished. Ethan handed over the keys without another word, but when their fingers brushed, static jolted through her, traitorous and real. He lingered, watching her work in silence, and for the first time in years, she didn't ask him to leave. Over the next few days, Ethan returned not just for his car, but for reasons he didn't voice. He helped with oil changes, fetched tools, brought coffee just the way she liked it to sugars, no cream, and made her laugh in spite of herself. Old habits clawed back, soft and treacherous, until the walls she'd built began to crack. But every laugh came with a memory of Ethan storming out mid-argument, of voicemail apologies she deleted before listening, of the night she found out he'd left town for a job without telling her, only to see him on TV weeks later with a pop star draped on his arm. Kayla told herself this was temporary. Just closure, maybe, curiosity, one last look before she slammed the door for good. But one night, after a fight over nothing, a missing wrench, a misread glance, Ethan grabbed her wrist, not rough but desperate, and said, "I never stopped loving you." She shoved him away, eyes blazing, heart splintering. "You don't get to say that like it's enough." He left again. No goodbye, no note, just like before. Days passed. The Mustang sat untouched. She hated herself for missing him, for checking her phone, for dreaming about the way his hands used to feel tangled in hers. Then came the knock at midnight. Thunder rolled outside as Kayla opened the door to find Ethan soaked to the bone, eyes bloodshot, knuckles bruised. "I messed up," he rasped. "Kayla, I need you to hear everything." She stepped aside without thinking, and he walked in, dripping water onto the hardwood. What followed wasn't an apology, it was a confession. About the pop star, the job, the lie he told to protect her from something darker than fame. Kayla didn't believe half of it, but the pain in his voice was undeniable. They argued until 3 a.m., every word a match to gasoline, until she grabbed his face and kissed him like she was drowning and he was air. Their clothes hit the floor. Their bodies remembered what their pride had tried to forget. And in the silence, after, as they lay tangled in sheets in regret, Ethan whispered, "I never wanted to leave you. I was being followed. They said they'd hurt you if I didn't walk away." Kayla froze. "What are you talking about?" He turned away, ashamed. "It's not just a story, Kayla. Someone's after me. I came back because I didn't know where else to go." She sat up, heart pounding. "What the hell did you get into, Ethan?" He opened his mouth, but a crash outside made them both jump. Headlights lit the window. A shadow moved across the wall. Kayla grabbed her robe. Ethan reached for his jeans. Then came the knock again, slow, deliberate, heavy. "Stay back," he warned. But Kayla was already moving, already opening the drawer where her father's revolver used to be, only to find it gone. Her breath caught. Ethan's face went pale. Another knock, louder this time. And then the voice. "You've got 10 seconds, Cross. Bring her out, or we come in." Kayla turned to Ethan, eyes wide with disbelief. "What the hell did you do?" And before he could answer, the front window shattered, and everything went dark. Glass rained like jagged confetti, and Kayla ducked instinctively as shards sliced through the air, catching the glint of lightning that strobed just beyond the ruined window. Ethan tackled her to the ground as a second crash followed, louder this time from the back door. A third came from the garage. They were surrounded. Kayla's breath came in ragged gasps, her mind stuttering between confusion and terror. "They found me," Ethan muttered, scrambling to his feet. "I thought I had more time." "Time for what?" she snapped, crawling toward the hallway. "Who are these people?" He didn't answer. Instead, he yanked open the utility closet, dug behind paint cans and toolboxes, and emerged with the revolver she thought was missing. "You took my dad's gun?" "I was trying to protect you," he said. "You weren't supposed to get dragged into this." "Too late," she hissed, snatching a flashlight from the counter and yanking open a drawer for her car keys gone. Her stomach twisted. "Ethan, they probably grabbed them already," he said. "Come on. There's a crawl space under the garage. It leads to the neighbor's yard." She followed, heart thundering, the sounds of booted footsteps on broken glass echoing behind them. They moved fast, silently, the kind of coordination that came from shared danger rather than trust. In the garage, Ethan pushed aside an oil-stained rug and lifted a hidden panel in the floor. "Go first. Not until you tell me who they are. It's the kind of story that gets you killed just for knowing it. Try me." He hesitated, then sighed. "They're part of a private operation. Used to be a government contractor, black ops kind of stuff. I worked for them. Logistics, comms. Then I found out they were smuggling weapons into civilian zones. I took proof, tried to go public. They caught wind and, well, you saw how that went." Kayla stared. "You ran off with evidence, left me without a word, and now they're hunting you?" "I left to protect you, and I came back to end it." She bit her lip, then dropped into the crawl space. Ethan followed, pulling the panel closed above them. The passage was tight, dark, damp, but familiar enough her dad had used it back when he was hiding things from loan sharks. Now it was hiding her from mercenaries. They emerged in the neighbor's yard 15 minutes later, clothes soaked, bodies scraped. Lights were on across the street, sirens, faint in the distance. "We need to disappear," Ethan said, pulling her toward the woods behind the block. "I'm not disappearing with you," she snapped. "I have a life here, a business. You won't have either if they know your name. You shouldn't have come back, but I did." He stopped, grabbing her arm. "And if you don't believe anything else, believe this: I'd rather die than let them hurt you." Her heart ached, but her trust was broken glass. She yanked free and marched ahead. The next 2 days were a blur. They holed up in a rundown motel on the outskirts of town, paid cash, kept the lights off. Ethan worked on an old laptop he'd hidden in a gym bag, eyes darting over encrypted files, tracking aliases, banking transfers, offshore accounts. Kayla paced, slept in snatches, watched news reports of a gang-related break-in at her shop. The lie twisted her stomach. Everything was unraveling, and through it all, they kept fighting. About who was to blame, about why he'd lied, about the things they never said back, then how she would have gone with him if he'd only asked, how he never really stopped needing her. But in between the shouting came those dangerous silences, the heat, the gravity pulling them together despite everything. Their nights were fire messy, desperate, electric, but mornings brought regret, and every time she looked in his eyes, she saw the man she loved battling the man she couldn't trust. On the third night, a breakthrough. Ethan decrypted a folder, labeled Vortex Alpha. Inside were names, operations, coordinates. One caught Kayla's eye, a location just miles from where they were, tagged active node. "What's there?" she asked. Ethan's jaw tightened. "A drop site, probably a server relay, maybe even a command station. Then we expose it. Get the proof to the press. If we go there, they'll know. They already do." Against his better judgment, he agreed. They drove in silence, headlights off, Ethan's fingers gripping the wheel hard enough to whiten his knuckles. The coordinates led to an abandoned water treatment plant, overgrown, rusted, but humming faintly with generator power. They crept through shadows, Kayla snapping photos while Ethan rigged a data siphon to a network terminal. "We have 30 seconds before it pings them," he warned. "Do not move." But as the data streamed, Kayla stepped back and froze. A red laser dot flickered across Ethan's chest. "Get down," she screamed, just as a shot rang out. The bullet grazed his shoulder, knocking him back. Kayla dropped behind a crate, dragged him toward cover. Blood soaked his shirt. Boots thundered from the darkness. She fired blindly, 1 shot then 2, before yanking Ethan toward a maintenance tunnel. "Hold on," she whispered, as he slipped in and out of consciousness. They made it out barely, but not without cost. Ethan was fading, bleeding out in the back seat as she sped toward a remote safe house she remembered from childhood, praying it was still stocked. She stopped the car, pulled him inside, screamed at him to stay awake. "Ethan, look at me." His eyes fluttered. You still mad at me? Always. She choked out. But I'm not letting you die. That's new. She patched him up with trembling hands, sat by his side all night, watching his chest rise and fall, willing it to keep going. And just before dawn, his eyes opened. We got the files? We got them. He tried to smile. Then we still have a shot. But as Kayla stood to grab water, her phone buzzed. No service, she'd thought. But somehow, one text had come through. Unknown number. Just 3 words. You chose wrong. And a photo, her garage in flames, burning, reduced to rubble. Kayla stared at the image on her phone, unable to breathe. Her garage, her entire livelihood, was now a pyre of twisted metal and smoke, reduced to a memory in a single, brutal instant. She dropped the phone. Her knees gave way, and she sank to the floor beside Ethan, who was only just conscious again, blood still dark on his shirt and pain etched deep into the furrow between his brows. They burned it, she whispered, her voice hollow. They burned everything. Ethan's fingers found hers, weak but firm. I told you. They don't bluff. She turned on him, trembling with fury and heartbreak. No. You don't get to look sorry now. This was my life, my father's tools, my work. It wasn't just a building, Ethan. It was the only thing I had left after you disappeared. I didn't mean, but you did. Every second you kept me in the dark was a second you pushed them closer to my doorstep. She stood up, pacing, adrenaline surging. We need to finish this. We leak the files. We burn them down. We end it. Ethan nodded, grim. But first, we disappear for real. We fake our deaths. Make it believable. What? We can't take them down if they're still hunting us. We need time, space to build the truth. If they think we're dead, they stop looking. And how do you suggest we pull that off? We stage a crash, burn what's left, and vanish. Kayla hesitated. And after that, Ethan looked at her with the kind of intensity that made her heart ache. Then we go to war. It took 2 days to set everything up. Kayla traded her truck with a backroad mechanic who didn't ask questions. Ethan uploaded the sensitive files to a dozen cloud backups, each locked with timed releases that would activate in a week unless he stopped them manually. Fail-safes, he explained. If they kill me, the world still finds out. If they kill us, Kayla corrected. We're in this together now, remember? That night, they argued again about their past, about the risk, about whether they should have left things broken instead of trying to fix them. But as always, it ended with skin against skin, heat drowning out reason, love and pain and less tangled until they couldn't tell one from the other. It was never simple with them, never safe, but it was real. The next morning, Kayla drove the stolen car to the edge of a canyon, doused it with gas, rolled in 2 sets of dental records she'd faked from old x-rays, and lit the match. The explosion was deafening. The smoke climbed high enough to be seen from the highway. By the time investigators arrived, there was no way to identify the bodies they'd assume were hers and Ethan's. Back at the safe house, they cut and dyed their hair, burned every trace of their old lives, and took on new identities. She became Elena Cruz. He became Michael Danner. But inside, they were still Kayla and Ethan, still the girl who fixed engines and the boy who broke hearts. They moved to a quiet coastal town 3 states away, the kind of place where no one asked questions and people preferred silence over stories. Kayla got a job at a marina fixing boats. Ethan worked construction under the table while piecing together a web of whistleblowers and contacts from his old Black Ops days. The piece was fragile, but for a while, it felt almost normal. They laughed again, shared coffee on the porch, argued about groceries, kissed like time hadn't ravaged them. But the past didn't die with the fire. One night, while Kayla was closing up the docks, she noticed a man watching her from across the parking lot. Not a local. Too clean. Too still. She rushed home, heart racing. They found us, she told Ethan. He grabbed his laptop and went pale. One of the backups was triggered. How? Someone tried to hack the failsafe. It didn't unlock the files, but it pinged our location. They're coming. Then we run again. No, she said, fire in her eyes. No more running. The next day, they contacted one of Ethan's few remaining allies, an investigative journalist named Tessa Rise, who'd once worked deep cover inside the same Black Ops circles. She agreed to meet them in Chicago, 3 days' drive away. I can publish the story, she said, but I need every file, every detail, and you need to show your faces, or no one will believe it. Kayla hesitated. If we go public, we're signing our death warrants. If you don't, Tessa replied, you're just signing someone else's. The decision weighed heavy. Ethan knew the files alone wouldn't be enough. They needed a face, a voice. And Kayla, despite all she'd lost, refused to let it end in silence. So they drove, trading off behind the wheel, sleeping in shifts, every gas station and motel a potential trap. By the time they reached Chicago, they were exhausted, but resolute. The meeting was set for midnight, in an abandoned print factory downtown neutral ground, secure, watched from multiple angles. Tessa arrived, sharp and confident, flanked by a pair of tech specialists. She reviewed the files, her expression growing darker with every click. This is worse than I thought, she said. These people are embedded in the Pentagon, the State Department. This isn't just an op, it's a shadow government. Kayla felt her throat tighten. Then, we bring them into the light. But just as Tessa nodded, the lights went out. Total darkness, silence, then gunfire, screams, chaos. Kayla hit the floor, pulled Ethan down with her. The techs were down, Tessa gone. Smoke filled the air. A voice echoed through the factory, mechanical, cold. Nice try, Cross. But you should've stayed dead. Kayla's hand found the revolver in her coat. She rose, heart pounding, and fired toward the sound. She heard a grunt, a thud. Silence again. She turned. Ethan was bleeding, a gash across his temple. Get up, she screamed, but he didn't move. Footsteps closed in. Kayla backed away, heart hammering, tears streaking her dirt-smudged cheeks. She raised her gun again, ready to fire when a spotlight snapped on, blinding her. And from the shadows stepped a woman in all black, face half covered, a tattoo just visible on her neck, one Kayla recognized. She'd seen it in Ethan's files. Project Revenant. The woman smiled. You really have no idea what he's hiding from you, do you? Kayla swallowed. I know enough. The woman tilted her head. Then you'll love this. She threw a folder at Kayla's feet. Inside were photos, dozens, of Ethan, with a woman, holding a child, happy, whole. That's not possible, Kayla whispered. The woman smirked. He didn't just leave you to protect you. He left because he already had someone else to protect. Kayla stared down at the photo of Ethan cradling a baby, date stamped just months before he came back to her door. And in that instant, the man she thought she knew shattered into 1,000 unforgivable pieces. Kayla couldn't feel her fingers. The folder in her hands had turned into ice, every photo inside it a dagger she hadn't seen coming. The factory's concrete floor spun beneath her as she stared at the image again, Ethan holding a child. Soft sunlight bathing his face in the unmistakable tenderness of a man who had built a different life, a hidden life. Her Ethan, the one who had claimed he was running to protect her, the one who had burned her world just to save what he had already chosen elsewhere. You're lying, she whispered, though her voice cracked under the weight of its own doubt. The Revenant agent tilted her head. You're smart enough to see the truth when it's in your hands. Kayla looked down again. The woman in the photo was unfamiliar, but the way Ethan smiled at her, intimate, effortless, was not. It was the same way he used to look at Kayla on quiet mornings, coffee between them, fingers brushing like promises they hadn't yet said aloud. And the child, brown curls, big eyes, maybe 2 years old, clung to his shoulder like she had been born knowing he was safe. Was this why he disappeared? Why he left Kayla in the dark? Her legs buckled. She dropped the folder and staggered back, just as gunfire echoed again from the far corridor. The woman vanished into the shadows, the folder now scattered across the floor. Kayla's pulse screamed in her ears, and she turned toward Ethan, still unconscious, blood dark and sticky on his temple. You lied to me, she whispered, kneeling beside him. You lied to me again. But there was no time to unravel the truth. She hauled him up, dragged him behind rusted machinery just as flashlights swept the room. Her heart thundered in sync with the stomping of boots. She could hear the orders, clipped and fast. 2 survivors unaccounted for. Secure the drives. Kill on sight. Kayla didn't wait. With strength born of rage and heartbreak, she hoisted Ethan over her shoulder, navigated the factory's maze-like halls, and found a utility door leading to the sewers. She didn't stop until daylight filtered through the cracks above, and only then did she lower him gently and slap his cheek. Ethan, she hissed. Wake up, now. He stirred slowly, eyes fluttering open. You're alive, he muttered. Dazed. We're both alive. Barely, she snapped, shoving a blood-streaked photo against his chest. Want to explain this? He blinked, then froze. His eyes darkened. Where did you get that? From her. Kayla spat. Revenant. She knew your name. She knew my name. And she said you weren't running to protect me, you were running from her. And from this child. Ethan sat up slowly, pain flashing through his features. It's not what you think. No, she laughed, bitter and sharp. So tell me, who's the kid? Who's the woman? Why do you look like a man who built a life while I sat alone wondering if you were dead? He dragged a hand down his face. The woman, her name's Donnie. She was part of the program. We were forced into it together. It wasn't love, it was survival. We staged a relationship for years so we wouldn't be eliminated. And the kid isn't mine. You expect me to believe that? Yes, he said, eyes wild with desperation, because the child is hers, from someone else. She used the kid as leverage when I tried to leave, said if I defected, they'd kill the girl first. So I stayed, for months, until I found a way to fake my death and run. That's when I came back to you. Kayla stared, torn between fury and disbelief. You could have told me. I couldn't. You were safer not knowing. Until you weren't. You always make decisions for me, Ethan. And you always say it's love. Because it is, he whispered. Even when I mess it all up, it's always been you. She turned away, shoulders shaking. He didn't reach for her. He knew better now. They lay low for a day and a half in an abandoned boathouse by the canal, patching wounds, sharing water, not speaking except when necessary. Every word between them was edged with thorns. But when night fell, Kayla lit a single candle and sat across from him. We still have the files, she said. Tess's people might be dead, but I saved one of the drives. We can upload it all ourselves. They'll track us. Let them. If we're going down, I want the truth to burn with us. Ethan gave a tight nod. There's one place left. An old server farm beneath a decommissioned broadcast tower. No one's used it in years. I know the access codes. Then that's where we go. They moved at dawn, disguises layered, weapons hidden. Every street felt like a trap. Every face, a threat. But they made it to the edge of the forest that cloaked the tower, the air thick with static and rain-soaked silence. Inside, the servers still hummed, ancient but functional. Ethan began the upload, hands steady despite the bruise at his temple. Kayla stood watch. Minutes passed. The files began to transfer. Then lights, voices. They were surrounded. Ethan cursed, fingers flying over the keys. I need 3 more minutes. You have 1, she shouted, firing a shot toward the entrance as boots thundered closer. The gunfire was deafening. A bullet grazed her arm, spun her sideways. She cried out, steadied herself. Ethan screamed her name. The screen blinked, upload complete. Run, he yelled, grabbing her. They bolted into the hallways as the tower erupted behind them, bullets tearing through concrete, sparks raining down. They found a ladder to the roof. No exit, just height and sky and the kind of wind that promises death. Below, the agents closed in. Kayla looked at Ethan. We jump. We won't survive the fall. Then we make it count. She turned, drew her pistol, and aimed at the first face that appeared on the rooftop. But the man held up a white cloth. Kayla Cross? Who's asking? Name's Agent Granger. Internal counterintelligence. We intercepted your upload. And we believe you. Ethan tensed. Then where were you yesterday? Tracking you, Granger said, stepping forward. The group chasing you, they've gone rogue. Revenants. Not just a shadow op anymore. It's its own government now. And they want you dead because you're the only ones who know. Kayla didn't lower her gun. Then prove it, or we jump. Granger didn't flinch. You're not the only ones who've lost people to them. Help us take them down from the inside. We have a team. We have weapons. We need what's in your heads. Kayla hesitated. Ethan met her eyes. For once, he didn't speak for her. You decide, he said softly. She stared out over the edge of the tower, then down at her shaking hands. She could still smell the smoke from her garage, hear the laugh of the woman who'd shattered her trust, see the child she couldn't forget. Slowly, she turned back to Granger. We're in. But as they stepped down the ladder, a phone in Ethan's pocket buzzed once. He pulled it out, stared at the screen. One message, one sender. His face drained of color. Kayla grabbed the phone and froze. The message was from Donnie, and all it said was, she's yours. And they took her. Kayla read the message 3 times, but the words never changed. She's yours, And they took her. Her mouth went dry. The night pressed in around them, thick with betrayal and questions she wasn't ready to ask. Ethan stood completely still, as if even the act of breathing might make the truth collapse around him. "Tell me this isn't real," she said, her voice low, shaking. "Tell me this isn't what it looks like." He didn't meet her eyes. "I didn't know. Donnie told me the child wasn't mine. I believed her. But now she says the girl is yours." Apparently, he ran a hand through his hair, pacing. "If it's true, if she's mine, and Revenant has her, then you'll do exactly what they want," Kayla snapped, stepping in front of him. "They'll use her against you, Ethan. You'll walk right into a trap, and we'll lose everything." Again, Ethan's jaw clenched. "She's a child, so was I when you left me the first time." The words stung them both, but Kayla didn't apologize. There was no room left for soft edges. Not anymore. Agent Granger approached carefully, having overheard enough to guess the weight of the message. "If this is true, and they've taken a child to bait you, it means they're out of options. Your upload changed things. There's chaos at the top. People are starting to question who's really in control." Kayla's eyes narrowed. "Then they'll lash out harder, more erratic, more desperate." Granger nodded. "Which makes them dangerous, yes, but vulnerable too. Where would they take her?" Ethan asked, voice rough. "What's their fallback facility?" Granger exchanged a glance with another agent. "There's one place, the Citadel. It's not on any map, and it doesn't officially exist. But we know it's real. And we know it's where Revenant disappears people they want to control or silence forever. Then we break in," Ethan said. Kayla's stomach twisted. "We don't even know where it is." "I do," Granger said quietly. "But once we go in, there's no coming back without blood." The next 3 days passed in a blur. Granger's team set up in a bunker beneath an abandoned medical school outside Milwaukee, an old Cold War relic with just enough rust and darkness to make it feel like the perfect war room. Ethan studied blueprints. Kayla ran recon simulations with Granger's second-in-command, a woman named Petra who trusted no one and had the scars to prove it. They didn't talk about the child, not at first, but late on the second night, as Kayla stood on the rooftop alone, Ethan joined her, his eyes heavy with regret. "Her name's Ivy," he said. "Donnie named her after a book she loved. I never paid attention to it. I thought the name was just a pretty sound. But now I remember how Donnie used to say it with this edge of sadness. Like she knew something she wasn't saying." "You loved her?" Kayla asked quietly. "No, I cared for her. I respected what she endured, but it was never love. And Ivy? I don't know how to feel. I didn't raise her. I barely knew her. But she has my eyes, Kayla. And if they hurt her," his voice broke, just for a second, "I'll kill every last one of them." She didn't reply, just reached out and took his hand. The mission was set for dawn. The Citadel was located deep in the Black Hills of South Dakota, beneath an abandoned radar station with no active signals. They flew in under the radar, literally aboard an old stealth copter with no transponder, no beacon, and no margin for error. Kayla didn't speak as they approached the drop point. She watched the sky fade from purple to red and wondered how many lives would end before the sun rose fully. Granger handed them both earpieces and cyanide capsules. "Just in case," he said grimly. The Citadel's entrance was disguised as a collapsed mine shaft. Petra and Kayla blew it open with shaped charges, sending tremors through the hills that would draw attention if the world above still cared. They moved fast, down rusted ladders and through narrow tunnels lit only by headlamps. Inside, the Citadel was colder than the earth around its steel walls, biometric locks, armed guards and quiet hallways. Revenant didn't brand itself with insignias. Its power was silence, but Kayla knew better. This place wasn't silence. It was a scream buried in concrete. They split into 2 teams, one to extract data, the other to search for Ivy. Kayla and Ethan went straight to the cells. Floor by floor, they opened rooms filled with ghosts, test subjects, former assets, agents whose names had been erased. The trauma hung thick in the air. Then finally, on level 9, Ethan froze outside a steel door. "She's in there," he whispered. "I don't know how, but I feel it." The lock was retinal. Kayla used a guard's eye, freshly cut from the last skirmish. The door clicked. Inside was a sterile room with a single cot. On it, curled tight and asleep, was a girl, maybe 4, dark hair. Ethan stepped forward, breath catching. "Ivy." The girl stirred, eyes fluttering open. "Daddy?" The word shattered Kayla in a way she hadn't expected. Ethan dropped to his knees. "I'm here, sweetheart. I'm here." But before he could touch her, an alarm blared. Red lights bathed the corridor. Kayla raised her weapon, spinning toward the hall. "We've been made." Over the come, Granger's voice screamed. "You have 10 minutes. Extraction points compromised." Petra barked back. "Fall back now." Kayla scooped Ivy into her arms. "Move." They ran. Every corridor was a gauntlet. Revenant wasn't subtle when it panicked. Guards poured in from all angles. Kayla and Ethan fought like wolves, each bullet purposeful, each second a victory. They reached the elevator only to find it offline. "Stairs," Ethan gasped. 6 floors up. They moved fast. Too fast. On level 4, Ethan was clipped in the leg. He staggered but didn't fall. Kayla hauled him up as Ivy clung to her neck. Almost there. On level 2, Petra's team rejoined them, bloodied but alive. "Exits ahead," she called. But as they turned the last corner, the final door opened and from it stepped the woman Kayla had seen before. The Revenant agent with the neck tattoo. "Leaving so soon?" she purred. She had a child's bracelet in her hand, pink, glittery, broken. Ivy whimpered. Kayla aimed her gun. "Step aside." The woman only smiled. "He didn't tell you the rest, did he?" "I'm done with secrets." Kayla spat. "Then here's one more. Ivy's not the only one. Donnie gave birth to twins." Ethan staggered. "What?" "One lived," the woman said. "The other was taken for research. Her name was Lily. She's been dead for 2 years." Kayla's world spun. Ivy buried her face in her neck. Ethan collapsed. And as the woman raised a remote detonator, the hallway behind them exploded. Smoke, fire, screams. The world went white, then black. When Kayla opened her eyes, she was outside, in snow, alone. Ivy was gone. Ethan was nowhere to be seen. And the citadel behind her was a smoking crater. Kayla didn't scream. She didn't move. She couldn't. Her limbs were frozen. Her lungs felt like they'd collapsed in on themselves, and the only thing she could hear over the ringing in her ears was the echo of Ivy's last cry, sharp, small, and ripped from her arms like a thread torn from a wound that would never heal. Snow drifted down in lazy spirals around the crater where the citadel had once stood, and the smell of burning metal mixed with the cold in a way that made her stomach twist. She tried to rise, failed, then dragged herself across the ice on her elbows. Blood painted a trail behind her, but she didn't care. All she could think about was the weight of the child in her arms seconds before the blast. The warmth, the trust, gone. A shadow moved through the smoke. Kayla reached for her gun, but her fingers barely twitched. A figure stepped into the light. Petra, bruised, limping, face streaked with soot. "You're alive," Kayla rasped. Petra knelt beside her. Barely. The blast didn't come from the main structure, it was triggered from inside. They buried the exits. No sign of Granger or Ethan. Kayla's heart splintered again. "Ivy? Gone," Petra said, grimly. There was a transport. Stealth VTOL. It took off just before the explosion. "We think she's on it." "And Ethan?" Petra shook her head. No body, but no signal either. Kayla felt something inside her crack, not break, not yet, but it was close. "There, separating us," she muttered. "They want to break us down, one by one, and they're using her to do it." Petra stood and offered a hand. "Then let's make sure they regret it." They made their way to a hidden evac site on the far ridge, where a surviving agent waited in a camouflaged snow rover. Inside, Kayla numbly accepted heat packs, water, and a datapad. Petra handed it to her. "Encrypted message came through 5 minutes ago. It's for you." Kayla tapped the screen. A video played, static at first, then the sharp click of heels on concrete. The image cleared. The same Revenant woman. "Hello, Kayla. Since you've proven surprisingly competent, I thought you deserved a little clarity. You're not just a nuisance. You're a key, Ethan's key, to everything." The camera panned slightly. Ivy was in the background, crying softly, flanked by guards. "The girl will remain alive for now, as long as you keep playing the game." Ethan, however, has been less cooperative. The frame shifted. A man chained to a chair, bloodied, unmoving. Kayla's stomach dropped. "Ethan, he's alive," the woman continued. "For now. But how long he stays that way depends entirely on you. There's a location embedded in this message. Show up, alone, or you lose them both." The video ended. Kayla's hand tightened around the datapad. Petra leaned forward. "It's a trap." "Of course it is." Then what's the plan? Kayla looked up, eyes burning with a fury so raw it made Petra take a step back. We give them what they want, and then we burn it all to the ground. The coordinates led to an old resort in the Arizona desert, long since abandoned after a landslide had cut it off from civilization. The location was tactically perfect, isolated. No satellite coverage, impossible to approach without being seen. Petra's team set up to kilometers out. Kayla insisted on going in alone, dressed in black, weapons hidden, every step rehearsed in her mind until it felt like breathing. The moment she crossed into the compound's perimeter, a drone swooped overhead. Moments later, the gates creaked open. She walked inside. A woman waited in the main hall, sleek suit, polished nails, that ever-present smile. "You came," she purred. "Did you expect anything less?" "No, that's why I planned a little surprise." Kayla was escorted to a glass-walled chamber at the heart of the compound. Inside, Ethan, strapped to a table, IVs in both arms, monitors beeping steadily. She slammed her hands against the glass. "What are you doing to him?" "Reprogramming," the woman replied casually. "The mind breaks easier under chemical manipulation than torture. He's resisting, of course, but not for long. You said I'm the key. What do you want?" "You." "Why?" The woman stepped close, her voice lowering. "Because you love him, and that love is stronger than any algorithm, any brainwashing technique. If we get you to break watching him suffer, helpless, then he breaks too. And when he breaks, we get access to everything locked inside his head. The black protocols, the forgotten files, the fail-safe triggers. We need him compliant. You're the leverage." Kayla's voice was ice. "I will burn this building to ash before I let that happen." The woman smiled wider. "You misunderstand. You're not here to resist. You're here to choose, Ethan or the child. You can only save one. The other dies tonight." Kayla's blood went cold. "You're bluffing." "Am I?" A second screen flickered on. Ivy, in a cage, whimpering, reaching out. "Choose, Kayla, right now." Kayla's heart fractured. This wasn't strategy. This wasn't warfare. This was something older, crueler. She looked at Ethan. His eyes were barely open. His lips moved. One word: run. And that's when she made her decision. She lunged at the woman, slammed her into the wall, grabbed the pistol off the nearest guard, and shot the cameras. Petra's voice roared in her ear. Now, explosions ripped through the compound's outer walls as Petra's team breached. Kayla raced down the hall, following the signal Petra had planted earlier on the escape. Frequency, room by room, floor by floor, she cleared the building, killing anything in her way. She reached Ivy's cage and shot the lock open. "Hold on, baby girl. I've got you." Ivy clung to her, sobbing as the building shook with more detonations. Petra's voice crackled again. "We've got Ethan. He's barely conscious. Extraction in 90 seconds. We're on our way." Kayla ran, Ivy's tiny arms around her neck, her heart pounding. Gunfire echoed behind them. The compound was collapsing. She burst through the exit just as the last tower crumbled. Petra pulled them into the escape vehicle, and they roared across the desert, leaving fire and death in their wake. But inside the transport, Ethan didn't move. Kayla gripped his hand. "Ethan, Ethan, stay with me." His eyes fluttered. "I saw her. Lily, she's not dead." Kayla froze. "What? They showed me. They lied. She's alive. And they still have her." And then he flatlined. The flatline was a sound Kayla never thought she'd hear again, not with Ethan. It rang in her ears like a funeral bell, blaring through the chaos inside the transport as Petra barked orders and agents scrambled to keep the vehicle stable over the rugged desert terrain. Kayla's hands hovered over Ethan's chest, trembling. "Defibrillator, now," she screamed. One of the medics ripped open the emergency panel. They'd been trained for casualties, but not for this. Not for him. Not for the man who had clawed his way back into her heart only to be ripped from it again. The first shock slammed through his body, arching him like a bow. Nothing. Second jolt. Still nothing. Come on. Come on. Don't you dare leave me," she whispered, wiping blood from his lips. Third shock. A pause. Then beep. A slow, weak pulse. But it was there. Alive. Barely. Kayla collapsed against the side of the vehicle, Ivy clinging to her leg with wide, silent eyes. The child hadn't cried since they pulled her from the compound. She was in shock, but she hadn't let go of Kayla. Once, the rest of the escape was a blur. Petra's safe house was deep in the Nevada mountains, shielded from satellites and old enemies alike. It was cold, empty, and fortified, perfect for the kind of recovery they needed. Ethan was placed in a medical stasis pod while Granger's backup team arrived with serum kits, blood bags, and an AI diagnostic rig that whirred ominously as it scanned his body. Kayla barely left his side. Ivy stayed with her, slept beside her, spoke only in whispers, mostly nonsense, except for one word she kept repeating in her sleep: Lily. Kayla couldn't forget what Ethan said before the flatline. Lily's alive. She knew, deep in her gut, that he hadn't imagined it. Revenant didn't just lie to manipulate, they lied to control. They'd kept Ivy alive to use against him. But if there was a second child, and they'd hidden her for this long, there was only one reason. Lily was important, valuable, a different kind of weapon. Kayla began digging into Revenant's old data cores, cross-referencing every lab Ethan had been forced through during his operative years. The name that kept surfacing wasn't Lily, it was Project Orpheus, classified under the deepest lock. The kind of secrecy that screamed horror. Petra brought her coffee on the third night. He's stable, she said quietly, not waking up, but holding on. He told me Revenant has Lily, that she's not dead. Petra didn't flinch. We intercepted something yesterday. An encrypted stream from a mobile lab convoy headed north. They referenced a package. Codename RP. You think it's her? Kayla nodded. They're moving her. Probably because we blew up their last base. They're scared, which means we still have time. To do what? Intercept, extract, and end this. You're running on fumes. So was Ethan. And he still jumped into hell to save Ivy. Now it's my turn. Petra hesitated. What if this child isn't like Ivy? What if she's been changed? Then I bring her back anyway, Kayla said. Because no child gets left in a cage, no matter what they've done to her. Ivy walked into the room then, clutching one of Ethan's old jackets, dragging it behind her like armor. She didn't say anything, just sat beside Kayla and leaned against her side. Kayla brushed hair from the girl's eyes. We're going to get your sister. The convoy was traveling through Montana. 6 black transport trucks, aerial escort, ground support. Revenant had no idea they'd been tracked. Petra's team moved silently, using a hijacked satellite to map every turn. They planned the hit, with surgical precision ambush on a bridge over the Gallatin River, a place where no signals would get out fast enough to call reinforcements. The night before the strike, Ethan opened his eyes. You're still here, he whispered. Kayla grabbed his hand. Always. I saw her, Kayla. They've done things. She's not like Ivy. She's fractured. Then we find every piece, and we put her back together. Ethan's eyes welled with tears. I don't know if I can survive losing another daughter. Kayla kissed his hand. Then we don't lose her. Dawn. The bridge loomed out of the mist, tall and cold and lined with explosives Petra had placed hours earlier. Kayla crouched beside Petra, weapon ready, breath slow and even. The convoy rounded the bend. The moment the third truck crossed the trigger zone, Petra hit the switch. Boom. Tires screeched. Shouts rose. Smoke billowed. And then the real battle began. Kayla moved like a shadow through chaos. She breached the lead truck with a thermite charge, took out the guards inside, then sprinted toward the central vehicle. It was armored differently, stronger. She fired at the lock, kicked it open, and there she was, Lily, standing in the center of the truck, barefoot, dressed in white, with wires trailing from her back into a console. Her eyes were luminous, too bright, unnatural. Kayla hesitated. Lily? The girl looked up slowly. Are you my mother? Kayla's heart clenched. No, sweetheart, but I'm here to take you somewhere safe. Am I broken? No, you're perfect. Then why do I hurt all the time? Because they lied to you. Will you make it stop? I'll try. Kayla stepped forward, hands open. But the moment she touched the wires, Lily screamed and the truck exploded with white light. Kayla was thrown back. When she blinked through the brightness, Lily was floating. Not standing, floating. A low hum filled the air. The guards who approached her fell to the ground, gasping, eyes wide with terror. She's not just a child, Petra whispered over the cum. She's a weapon. Revenant hadn't just raised Lily. They'd built her into something else. Something that could bend minds, short-circuit machines, twist perception. Kayla crawled forward. Lily, please, you don't have to do this. They said I would always be alone. They were wrong. They said no one would love me. They lied. Lily trembled. Then her eyes dimmed. She collapsed into Kayla's arms, unconscious. Kayla turned to run just as revenant reinforcements dropped from the sky. Petra shouted, "We're surrounded." A voice crackled over the open frequency. "The revenant woman. Come. Cold. You can't run, Kayla. She belongs to us. Let her go, and we let you live." Kayla pressed her lips to Lily's forehead. "Not a chance. Then watch what happens when you keep playing hero." Kayla turned just in time to see Ivy, standing in the open, staring at the helicopters. Alone, a sniper's red dot hovered on her chest. Then, the shot.